What's up, guys? Crypto Noah back with another weekly macro video. We're going to go through everything. There's been a lot that's happened in a week. In crypto, a week is like a couple months. So we're going to go through all the macros. We're going to look at some charts. And I'm just going to give you guys my updated view on the markets and how I'm moving and if I change anything in my portfolio. And before we start, I have to say none of this is ever financial advice. Do your own research, but use this channel as a starting point. If you guys notice, background's a little bit different. I am in Tangier, Morocco. And Tangier, Morocco kind of reminds me of California mixed with the Middle East. The city is really like Middle Eastern, and you walk through these little streets and all these curves. It's like a maze, but once you get out of the city and on the coast, it really reminds me of like California. It's really hilly. People are really nice here too. So I've been enjoying the culture. Anyways, enough of that. Let's jump straight into the video. So the first thing is that Iran and Israel are apparently at war again. It seems like they're just always fighting. However, Donald Trump did say that they have complete and total control over the skies over Iran. So the U.S. is, trying to step in and help de-escalate the conflict. Just to give you guys the TLDR, Israel said that it did kill Ali, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, which was Iran's new wartime chief of staff. And the country's most senior military commander. It was a video somewhere online where it showed like his apartment and smoke coming out of it. It says here at least 224 people have been killed since Israel began bombing Iran on Friday. We're in its fifth day, and Iranian retaliatory strikes have killed at least 24 people in Israel. So they're just firing off against each other, and it has caused a dip in the markets. So geopolitical conflicts do typically cause a dip in the market, but Bitcoin has recovered pretty good since then. This is how I think of it. Crypto is becoming mainstream, and that is a direction that it's headed towards. But sometimes when you're going somewhere, there's like roadblocks and pit stops where you got to go around. You might have to go back and take another route. This is just something that's making it go back in terms of prices, making it go back and take another route. The genie's already out of the bottle. So, and these things that are happening is really good for yields in DeFi, because when there's major buying or major selling, whoever's providing that liquidity, which we obviously teach here, click a link in the description if you want to book a free call. We have a community and, of course, all the tools and resources and coaching that you need in order to maximize getting passive income in DeFi. I regress from that. These kinds of events, while my heart goes out to the people who are going through these things, because it's a matter of life and death. As an investor, they say never let a good crisis go to waste, because there's always a silver lining and an opportunity, depending on where you are. Okay, so let's look at some Bitcoin stats. Like we always talk about, Bitcoin is the horse that leads the race. So if people are buying Bitcoin, that means that it's going to eventually drag the rest of the market up. It's just a matter of when, not if. So obviously MicroStrategy is constantly adding to their Bitcoin stock. And if you guys didn't know, Tesla is still holding a large amount of Bitcoin, right? So all these with arrows on it are people who are adding Bitcoin to their treasury, right? You have banks on here, companies, funds, like all kinds of different companies that are buying Bitcoin. And if we look at the ETF data, we can see it's still pretty steady, right? So, it's not explosive, it's steady, but, it's still steadily being taken off of the market, which will steadily rise the price. If we look at the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF data, you can see that Ethereum is way behind in terms of ETF accumulation. We have Bitcoin at 434 million, ETH at 21, and you can see the historical value. So in the last week, 438 million, last month, 282 million. Last 3 months, 156 million, right? So this is a good sign. And this gives you all the data on the assets under management and who's holding what. All right, let's take a look at the fear and greed index. We're right in the middle. So we were up a little bit more before the whole Israeli and Iran thing happened. But obviously that brought us back a little bit. And we can kind of go either way. I have been talking about that I am anticipating a summer lull, because fund managers typically like to go on vacations in the summertime. Summer is usually just a more chill month for markets. Like it's normally pretty flat or even down on average. Not saying that can't happen, but this also coincides with the 60-day pause that we have for the tariffs. Now around 60 days now, because I think it's been around a month. I have to check the date. But I still think around Q3, when people are getting back to work, it's going to be some fireworks in the market, and institutions will take more interest in ETH, and we'll see a lot of inflows into ETH ETFs, and I do still think we'll see a 7 to 10K ETH before the end of the year. If we look at the United States Central Bank balance sheet, we're still going down. I always like to run through these. M2 money supply is still going up. Got gold still consolidating around all-time highs, and it doesn't look like the trend is slowing down just yet. We have the S&P trading near all-time high levels, as well as the other major stock indexes. And then if we go over to Bitcoin, here's some important things. So I have this line right here, which marks Bitcoin's price when it opened January 1st, right? And the market has been respecting this level. Like it was resistance here, it was support here, like it was respecting it a lot here. And then it consolidated around that time and came back up to here. Now, Bitcoin is in this position where it's going to have to kind of make a decision. So if we break above this, see a break and retest, and I want to see a close on the weekly. If we get a close on the weekly above this line, I think we continue to go up to, around 110 to 135K in the short to midterm. But I do think that it is also likely that we're going to come back down if this level isn't upheld. And it's also coinciding with our 62 EMA. Like if we break our 62 EMA, which is this orange line here, I think we're going to come back down to retest our 200-day moving average, which will give it more, it'll pull more fear into the market and give people more opportunity to be greedy. And retesting the 200-day moving average is also right in alignment with the 2025 opening price for Bitcoin. So that'll be double confirmation. Probably come down here, consolidate a little bit more before we come and start to do one of these. The Ethereum chart isn't looking bad either. If we zoom out on Ethereum, you can see that we're back on the trend line that we've been on since June of 2022. ETH has been respecting this trend line. It broke it, and now we're getting back. And I want to see the 62 EMA cross my 200-day moving average, because as you can see, anytime the 62 is on top of the 200-day, look at what the market's doing, right? This whole time it was on top here. The whole time right here on top, little rally. But when this line is on top, it's bearish conditions, and we're seeing this start to creep up, right? But we're not going to count our chickens before they hatch. This is also a pretty bullish pattern, right? ETH has been consolidating right here for a while. They say the longer the base, the higher the chase. So we're on top of our 62. We're on top of this trend line. And the $2,600 level has been a pretty key level. So if we can establish this as support, just like I said with Bitcoin, I'll get a break. We already got the break and retest, but I want to see, because you see we broke and we retested, but I want to see a nice big green candle close here on the weekly. Like if we go to the weekly, we haven't had a big green candle close here. Like this candle is pretty small. This is just telling me that the bulls and bears are like kind of evenly matched. I need to see a breakout candle, right? Just like we saw here. Like you saw a break, retest, and we saw this big green candle print. The 62 finally was getting above the 200-day, and then we saw this nice rally. It's the same thing here. It happens like clockwork. That's what needs to happen in order for me to confirm that we're going to keep going up. And then also, this chart's really, really important. I want to see this ETH to BTC ratio continue to rise to signal that Ethereum is going to outperform Bitcoin, because it eventually always does, right? And we were on this trend line for a long time. We need to get back above this trend line. And if Bitcoin continues to make all-time highs and we go to 120K, 130K, eventually that liquidity is going to make its way into the number 2 asset, which is ETH. It's just a matter of when, not if. Like we were on this trend line, then we were on this one, we broke this one, and we broke this one. And our 62 hasn't been on top of our 200-day literally since May of 2023. It's just been downward pressure, mostly to do with the Bitcoin ETF being launched and doing much better than the Ethereum ETF. And then lastly, we need to see Bitcoin dominance finally drop. Like I've been talking about for a long time. Anytime we see a major altcoin rally, we always see Bitcoin dominance drop, and it's usually after the halving. So we had the halving here, these red lines, Bitcoin dropped against altcoins, and that was altcoin season. Same thing here, Bitcoin dominance dropped. We need to see that same thing here. We need to break, retest, and I want to see a nice big red candle close here on the weekly like this to signal that we're going to be going down, just like it did here, right? Just like it did here. We got a nice break, retest, big red candle close on the weekly here. We need to see that same thing here, and that'll tell me that altcoin season is most likely to be underway. You want to stack as many confirmations as you can in your favor, but it's never a sure thing. Surety brings ruin. So having that said, am I doing anything different? The only thing I'm doing different is I've been accumulating lots of ETH. Instead of taking my yield farming positions, my rewards, and using them to only buy ETH, I'm taking half and buying ETH and taking the other half and putting them back into my pools to increase my yield so I can buy more ETH. And then also as we're going into the summertime, I'm gonna be yield farming with 40 to 45% of the portfolio versus the normal 25-35. The reason why is because, like I said, it's gonna be a summer lull, I anticipate, and that means I think we're gonna be consolidating. And if we're consolidating, that means price isn't gonna be doing like this as much, so I can set tighter ranges and make more money. So I want to accumulate as many rewards as I can, as much yields as I can, so I can buy as much ETH as I can, so that when Q3 and Q4 rolls around and ETH starts to, produce some fireworks, I'll have more to sell. But with that, I'll conclude this video. If you got value, drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe, share with a friend. And if you want to learn how to take advantage of the best opportunities in DeFi, click the link in the description, join our free group, and book a call with me to see if our program's a good fit for you. But with that, thank you so much for watching. I love every single one of you who tuned in, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and trade safe.